Well, the feds reportedly taking President Obama's anti-bullying initiative to a whole new level, ordering school principals to monitor and curtail what students write online at sites like Facebook and even possibly what they say at home. According to a report on the Daily Caller website, if your child's choice of words is deemed homophobic or racist or otherwise potentially problematic and the principal does nothing, the school could now face a lawsuit. Joining me now, David Webb. He's the host of the David Webb Show on SiriusXM Patriot. And Nancy Skinner, who's a syndicated radio talk show host and a former Democratic congressional and Senate candidate. All right, panel, thank you for being here. So this is on the Daily Caller's website, and they rely, they cite the National School Board Association, which declined to be interviewed by them, but has come out and said this new policy violates students' and families' privacy rights, their free speech rights. It's going to lead to expensive lawsuits and is basically an abomination because they say it stretches a 1999 Supreme Court decision way beyond what the Supreme Court acknowledged schools could do to students. David?
Absolutely it does. And Nancy, look at what we do and look at what you do, Megan. Imagine if they started to define our speech. What the students do on their own phones, laptops, on their own time is protected by the First Amendment. This is federal government intrusion. This is an ideological drive by Kevin Jennings, who has a defined agenda. He's known for this, and the president is outsourcing this when he should be focusing on international affairs, the economy, and this is strictly about controlled speech.
Kevin Jennings is he heads up the Education Department's Office of Safe and Drug-Free Schools. He also founded the Gay and Lesbian Straight Education Network Advocacy Group. Nancy, let me ask you, this is all part of President Obama's effort to stop bullying, and everybody can agree that, you know, we don't want bullying, right? And probably principals do need to do a lot more because we've seen some terrible cases where, in some cases, they've done nothing. But the question is whether, you know, it could extend this far properly into your home, into your kid's Facebook site, and so on.
Well, first of all, this Daily Caller, the whole idea that this is a whole new policy or something is completely false. This was the Department of Education just issuing guidelines to talk about bullying in conjunction with the President's anti-bullying conference and Facebook's new invention of some tools. And what this is about, and simply says, is, and the reason, Megan, as you said, thousands of kids commit suicide because of bullying every year, thousands. And now Facebook came out with some tools that they can flag this stuff, and schools can intervene before those kids get hurt, their education is ruined, or they kill themselves. So there's no new, you must go look at the Facebook, there's no regulations, but this is saying, let's be smart here. We know that Facebook is used to bully, and it's a new invention, a new tool. So they looked at these guidelines, they looked at the civil rights law and said, this is just with the social media network, the way to reapply the civil rights laws. You got to be mindful. You got to know that it doesn't matter if a kid is their education is at risk, their health is at risk, their life, then yes, schools have responsibility to do something about it.
But it would be an extension. It would be an extension because right now, it's clear that the schools have to curb like physical bullying. That's obvious. And if it happens within the school, you know, or on school time, they have to step in. Otherwise, they could face liability. But David, they seem to be saying that what now the feds are pushing these principals to do is to monitor Facebook, to monitor schools, students' behavior off campus on their private time if it's harassing. And if it's harassing, then they must step in or face potential liability.
Yeah, and so let's get this straight. Facebook is going to decide to violate First Amendment rights also, so they've got to take a look at this. What we have here, Megan, essentially is an administration that has used this tactic before. The Dear Colleague letter is tied to the money that the federal government has tied the schools at the local level to. So if you don't do what we say, then we affect your money. This is the problem with centralized education. We're taking out the parents. We're taking out the local school's ability to act, and we are threatening them. And when you look at Kevin Jennings, the so-called safe school czar, come on. This is a guy with a defined agenda, a historical and factual agenda, and the president has let him get away with something that supports what he does with his advocacy group. And this is about pushing something that we really don't need in schools. We need local control, local involvement, not another federal government intrusion.
Nancy, I'll give you the final word.
All right. two things, Megan. The whole agenda of Jennings, we can read between the lines. You're talking about the gay agenda, and that is not what this is about at all. David, and to your point,
I didn't say the gay agenda.
But protecting gay and lesbian bullied students is part of the concern.
Protecting all students who are bullied.
No, but also
the
gay and lesbian students, many of whom have wound up committing
Yes.
suicide because of terrible bullying over the past couple of
There
years.
are laws to
Absolutely.
protect
And
students
non-gay
already and
students.
instruments in
But I want
place.
to get back to the free speech argument, David, the point that you made. You're a radio host. You have a right to say what you want. Your boss has a right to fire you for saying that. As any employee, if you're on Facebook and you say things and your employer finds out, you have a right, you can get fired. The free speech amendment, First Amendment, has nothing to do with that. It says the government cannot stop you. And if one kid's harassment, bullying, prevents another kid's right to an education, then there is a conflict of rights. It has nothing to do with stopping free speech, as you
It
should know as a
absolutely
radio
does.
host,
You
Dan.
impede free
It does
speech when
not.
you define it by control or by using purse strings to control it. This is what they're trying to do.
Got it.
Nancy, come on.
Got to leave it at that. Listen, if you want to check out the article, it's at dailycaller.com, and then you can also find the entire letter that was written, the Dear Colleagues letter, at ed.gov. Okay, panel.